Yo. Sorry, guys. I got a little bit of a cold, so that's why my voice sounds like this. But this is the Sherdog live post-fight, post-recap of UFC Atlantic City, Blanchfield versus Fiorot, Fiorot versus Blanchfield, live on sherdog.com. I am your host. My name is Keith Shillan. Joining me, as always, is the senior editor of sherdog.com, the great Ben Duffy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. I'm the only person I would say, in the United States that wasn't poked in the eye tonight. So I'm pretty good.
Yeah, you got both of your eyes. So again, guys, I'm sorry. I got a little bit of cold right now. So if my voice sounds a little scratchy, that's why. Shout out to everybody in the chat. It is late, Ben. It is 1:38 a.m. I don't want to go too far down on that, but I mean, come on, guys. There's people.
This was on the East Coast. Like, I understand when there's a card on the West Coast that it's going to start late for me, but it's an hour later for you and everybody that was actually there working tonight. Like, what the hell?
I always think about all the people that are casual fans that might want to stay up, but then they're like, "Hey, man, my kids get up early in the morning. And it's Easter. They're gonna be getting the Easter eggs and all that shit, and they can't stay up late." But hey, I've like hammered that horse, beat that horse so many times, so I'm not going to go on that. We have 13 fights to talk about, so let's get right into it. Main event. Erin Blanchfield, New Jersey's own, took on Manon Fiorot from France, with Manon Fiorot winning a unanimous decision. Ben, I think this is I think Manon, she was the underdog, right?
She was the underdog. Yep.
This is one of our consensus underdog picks. I don't know if it was the last time we had a consensus underdog pick in a main event. I don't know the last time we did that.
Me neither.
But one thing we don't do here one thing I hate when people brag about making picks and I hit my parlay, or I hit my no, hold on, let me back up. I don't care if you brag about that. What I hate is when someone brags and goes, "Oh man, I called that fight," and it was like, that's nothing like how you said the fight was going. Like, this person wins by high kick knockout, and you're like, "Oh, he's gonna wrestle the guy to, get a submission in the first round," and it's like a 5th round high kick. So we don't really do that. We don't really brag about making our picks. But I'll say this: we hammered this one? We hit this one perfect.
Yeah. Having said that, I mean, and I feel good about that. I think we both saw the fight clearly. I wasn't comfortable with the pick until probably the end of the 3rd round, because through a round and a half, I was like, okay, this looks right. Blanchfield's having a hell of a time closing the distance. And when she does close the distance, Manon Fiorot is just chucking her off like someone playing with her little sister. But this being Fiorot's first 5-round fight, at least at this level, and the way she has slowed down in the 3rd round of fights before, I'm like, man, if Blanchfield is able to turn up the jets later, if Fiorot starts looking real tired all of a sudden, we could end up with a fight where Blanchfield gets a tap out in the 5th round where she's down 4 rounds to none or something. So yeah, I'm happy that I seem to understand this fight correctly. We learned a little bit about both fighters, but yeah, like I was still kind of clinging to the arms of my chair here for a couple rounds.
Yeah. So I'll say, I've seen people, not the most exciting main event. I mean, it was a striking battle. So I mean, if you like striking battles, you should be happy with that. But, not the most.
Here, I'm going to throw 2 things out for you just real quick. If I told you this fight turned into a striking battle, you would not have expected it to be this kind of And if I told you this card set a UFC record for most KO and TKO finishes, you would not have guessed that it was so terrible.
Oh, there you go.
But both are true.
There you go. I don't think it's terrible. We'll get to that later on. And I mean, I don't think the overall, but the main event, if I was grading just the main event, I'd probably give it like a C-. I mean, it wasn't the most exciting. But I'll say this. Obviously, this is exactly the kind of fight Manon Fiorot, wanted, favored her. I scored a 50-45. Did you give all 5 rounds to Manon, or did you give one to?
I gave all 5 rounds to Manon, but I could see an argument for giving 2 of the rounds to Blanchfield. Like the first one, you could make the case that tight guillotine was better, than anything and everything that Manon Fiorot did during that round. Like, she was in legit peril for a minute there. And then I thought the fourth round was really damn close. So if there's somebody out there that gave 2 rounds to Blanchfield, I'm not yelling at him.
Okay.
But I gave all 5 to Manon.
Yeah, I want all 5 from Manon Fiorot too. I think Manon Fiorot was brilliant tonight. And I know like most people won't agree with that. Like most people say when you think of brilliant performance, you think, walks her down, tees off on her, knocks her out in the first round. I think it was brilliant because, yeah, it was boring, but it was boring to, like, it set her up to win. Like, it's not the most exciting, but she was playing Battleship with like a kindergarten kid who doesn't know how to play Battleship. Like they hit at B4, they don't go to B5 because they don't understand how it works. And the next one's like F12, and they're like, nope, you missed that one. Like she just, at one point, Paul Felder said, I wish Manon Fiorot would step on the gas and kind of press the action a little bit more. And I'm like, why? Why would she do anything different? Why give Blanchfield a chance to, if you start pressing forward and you're open up with bigger strikes, you'll teeing off more, to give Blanchfield opportunities to duck underneath something, get to your hips, maybe get you down, or on the flip side, gas yourself out. Why not just continue? Manon Fiorot could do these rounds forever. A light sparring session for someone who's kickboxed as much as her.
She's a boxer. She's literally done that for 10 rounds before.
Yeah, and that's exactly what she was getting.
No, I completely agree with you here. And obviously, the just bleed part of me wanted them to come out throwing axe kicks and flying armbar attempts at each other. But to bring up the case of another good-looking person from France, it's the same thing that carried Cyril Gane so far. Like, yeah, it's not exciting, but I'm winning these rounds.
Exactly.
If you want things to be different, you're going to have to do something different, and I can react to that. And it's to Fiorot's credit that she took advantage of Blanchfield's failure to make adjustments between rounds. Because the thing is, Fiorot came out with a great game plan. I'm going to use my jab and my John Jones style, like side front kick, to keep you on the outside. And if you get on the inside, I'm going to initiate the clinch. You love to bring this up, like, fighters who, if they know the shorter fighter's gotten in range, they initiate the clinch. She did that, and she did it with a little extra mustard on it. There were some times when Blanchfield came, like especially in the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds, where Blanchfield came crashing into the pocket. Fiorot just grabbed her by an arm and flung her on by.
Yeah.
Once just flung her into the cage. Once flung her so hard she spun around and spun down to one knee and had to hop back up. That was some big sister shit. That had to be incredibly demoralizing for Blanchfield. It's like, oh, awesome. I'm inside the jab. I'm on her. Wait, she's grabbing me and she's just throwing me on by.
Yeah, there must have been a lot of stuff that's going on with Blanchfield when you have someone who's bigger than you, stronger than you, but also much older than you. I mean, Blanchfield's still so young that she's 20 and all of a sudden there's a woman in her 30s throwing you around. You must be like, damn, like that's like, we always say like old man strength, like she got some old woman strength. That's a woman who's been around, Yeah. So I love that you talked about the way. So Blanchfield was struggling very early. Get close in the distance. Manon Fiorot seemed to have her timing a minute and a half into the fight. Maybe not, maybe quicker than that, 45 seconds into the fight. She had her timing. Erin Blanchfield didn't set up any of her entries to get, because she needed to kind of get, like, her team at one point, you could hear them saying all the way in, all the way out. She had to be right in her face. And she was struggling to get there because she wasn't fainting. She wasn't doing anything. She wasn't like throwing kicks and following up. She even tried like a flying, sometimes people do like a flying knee to kind of get them to force them to lift their hands. And then you kind of follow that in, or like high kick or something. She couldn't do any of that. Manon Fiorot was just moving, jabbing her, or throwing a little check hook and sidestepping her, because she kept attacking straight on the center line over and over again. And she just had her timing. And I love that you mentioned that she initiated clinch, because I had that in my notes. I always think, if you know that position's going to be there, like it's going to happen. So why not be the one that gets the inside position? Like she knows that Blanchfield is not a Josh Koscheck, blast through your hips kind of person. She is a get in the clinch. The way what she did to Talia Santos, get inside, grind her, try to stick your leg behind slowly bring them down from the cage. So you get that. It's like if you wrestle somebody who's likes to set up everything with a deep underhook, you initiate the underhook yourself because you're going to be in that position. So you might as well be the one controlling.
Yeah.
And that's what I saw from Manon Fiorot. And I mean, I thought she was absolutely brilliant. One thing I think may be such a great thing for Manon Fiorot moving forward is the most exciting moment of the entire fight you mentioned already in the first round when Manon Fiorot went for a takedown and Erin Blanchfield jumped on a guillotine, and I thought she had it. I was like, oh man, it's over. And in guillotines, I've kind of learned the longer they hang on, it's kind of the point, like, they're good. But the first like 15, 20 seconds, I'm like, oh wow, she's got her. I think it's good for Manon Fiorot because right when she went for it, I'm like, oh my God, that's so stupid. Like, you were doing well in the striking. Why do that? But it's the ego. It's ego. All week long, you've been hearing striker versus grappler. Can you hang with her grappling? And it was an ego thing. I think now she knew, like the rest of the fight, she knew, like, okay, I survived that. Let's not try that shit anymore. And I think moving forward, if she gets someone who should have a grappling edge, like, why try that shit?
Yeah, I'm with you. I have the feeling that may be the most exciting moment we get in the Manon Fiorot fight for a little while.
yeah, it could be. Erin Blanchfield, she's so young, so I'm not too concerned with her losing a setback. But one thing I want to ask you this: did we I'm talking about the MMA community, not necessarily me and you. I feel like we had a pretty good assessment on Erin Blanchfield's skill set. But has the MMA community overrated her striking from one fight against Jessica Andrade, where Jessica Andrade took it on very short notice?
I think I overrated. I think I'm one of them. Coming into this, I thought she would have better success in the striking than she ended up having. But no, Fiorot made her look very basic and made her look like she had a kind of poor command of distance and footwork. Like Fiorot made her, yeah. We may have, and I agree. She's super young, and I mean, she's still on her first real team. I mean, she could be a completely different fighter 3 or 4 years from now. I still think she's a potential future champ. I didn't see anything tonight that makes me think, okay, we've seen a hard ceiling on this woman, except for the fact that she's going to be similarly undersized against some other people. Like Grasso isn't huge, but Shevchenko is about the same size as Fiorot. I mean, so was Tyler Santos. So it's not just any bigger woman that can do this to Blanchfield. But nonetheless, moments tonight looked like a strawweight versus a flyweight in a way that Fiorot versus Namajunas didn't even.
Oh, yeah. I agree. That kind of leads to John Butterfield's question right here. Can Erin cut to 115? I don't know. As she gets older, I don't think that's gonna be wise. Like her being at the stage of dropping down as she becomes more of a woman and fills out, and who knows? I don't know what her dating relationship is, whatever. But maybe she has a boyfriend and gets pregnant or something like that. So
maybe it'll be one of those Mackenzie Dern pregnancies that suddenly makes it easier for her to cut weight. Who knows?
It could be. It could be one of those. Well, I mean, I think what happens with Mackenzie Dern is you get wiser and you learn from your mistakes, and you grow up as a person, and then you go from like American to more Brazilian, so you kind of eating better, more rice and salads and everything instead of little cheeseburgers and French fries. But Erin is an undersized strawweight. We saw it 2 fights in a row, so it makes me wonder. And then when the one time she put on it, it makes me wonder if going down to 115 would be a wise decision. I don't know where she stands like that, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. If you asked that about other people in the division, we could say, yeah, she's too slow. JP Taylor's talking about she's too slow. She might be too slow if she goes down the strawweight, but you lose a little bit of pounds. Maybe she's a little faster. But the thing is, like, she went against Andrade. Andrade was on a skid. Andrade is small. You talk about Blanchfield being small. Andrade is small. Andrade has never been a speed person. She's a power one.
Yeah.
So it's like the one person that Erin Blanchfield is going to be faster than, and she had such a great performance. Again, you got Andrade, zero tape study, very few, little limited tape study coming in. Who knows where, her timing? Because there's a lot too. People talk about coming in a fight, and I feel like we overstress the cardio side of someone taking the short notice. Obviously, it's extremely important, but what I don't think we stress enough is like the timing, the sparring, the it's just different. You're kind of peaking, you're not peaking, you're not, so it's just something I wonder. Now I'm with you. I still think, Erin Blanchfield, if she can add, a more legitimate takedown, if she can continue to improve her striking, get a little more athletic, get a little more explosive. Yeah, I think she could be a champion one day. I liked her as, this high because of her age. I'm not like saying, she's not going to move forward and not improve, but she definitely has a lot of holes in the game. I mean, we picked against her because we saw some holes and we thought Manon Fiorot would be an issue. How does Manon Fiorot? So we'll get to matchmaking, and I'm assuming we're probably going to go the same way on this, but I mean, do you think she could be a champion? Like we talk about, you said Erin Blanchfield, you believe is going to be a champion one day. What do you put the odds on of Manon Fiorot? Because I mean, she's probably one win away.
Yeah, she's probably one win away. They kind of teased that in the immediate post fight interview, pointing out that it'll be a while before Grasso and Shevchenko really solve their business. Because if Grasso and Shevchenko were fighting 2 or 3 months from now, probably just tell her to wait. Considering that they might not sort things out until the end of the year, presumably Fiorot's going to want another paycheck before then. It can't be too much of a step back. Like she doesn't want to detract from, the momentum she's got. So it's got to be a reasonable challenge. I think she needs one more fight. And if she fights the person or, people that I'm suggesting she fights, she'll probably be favored. And then she gets the winner of Grasso Shevchenko next.
Yeah.
And you know what? I don't know if I would favor her, but she wasn't favored to win tonight either. And I picked her after watching, a lot of tape on these two women.
Yeah.
Who knows what I'll think after, because I see routes to victory for her against both of them.
Yeah. So Dev is saying plus 300 against Shevchenko or Grasso, depending on who's a champion. Obviously how that fight plays out changes it. If it's a close split decision one way or the other is different than if one of them, say Grasso knocks out Shevchenko or Shevchenko just dominates Grasso. That changes odds. I know I get accused of this, especially on the preview show, of always saying, "Oh, that line's too far. That it needs to be closer." Yeah. I love Dev. I think he's wrong on this one. I think she'd be like a negative 150, 160. I think it's much closer. Right.
Dev is like, he is on the hate train tonight. Like in the Sherdog Slack, he's been on one. It's pretty funny. Like
she just threw a perfect.
Dev,
she just like
she just
threw a shutout. She just threw a shutout. Like what is it? I mean, yeah, it's not the most exciting, but it was like when like Lennox Lewis was the heavyweight champion of the world. Like not the most pleasing guy to watch, but
like think of how old Shevchenko is going to be by the time that's wrapped up. If she just ekes out a 48-47 decision over, over Grasso, are you really 3-1 comfortable with her over Manon?
Well, the one thing about Manon, she's going to be older too.
She will be.
I guess technically everybody who fights a year and a half from now is older, but so my one is, you kind of have two options with Manon Fiorot. We'll get with what you want to do. Option one is probably fight Maycee Barber, number one contender, her Maycee Barber. The other option is just sit out, wait, hope everything goes normal with Grasso and Shevchenko. You sit out, you take on the winner. Being her age, she might sit out because if you lose to Barber, you got to come back. You got to win one or two, probably 1-2 more fights to get back in the title picture. Does she really want to take that route?
And I'm obviously the UFC is going to do what they want to do, but I'm not matching Barber up with the winner of this. I'm not burning Barber's win streak, because Barber's got this little thing where she's on a good win streak of her own. She's got I think she's got a certain amount of marketability if she turns into a fighter that can at least turn into a consistent main event fighter, a title contender. I'm matching these two against the winner and loser of Karine Silva versus Ariane Lipski that's happening in like 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay, so you're going
like
then.
Silva's another one that's on a winning streak in the UFC. Lipski, she's undefeated in the UFC. Lipski's won like 3 in a row. It would be 4 in a row if she beat Silva.
You're saying Macy Barber though, not Manon Fiorot.
No. Like I'm saying, Fiorot and Blanchfield. I'm giving them the winner and loser of Silva and Lipski. I'm keeping.
I guess
I'm keeping Macy Barber completely away from them. Yeah, so, because the other thing you have to keep in mind is if tough history is any indication, there's a good chance that either Shevchenko or Grasso isn't ready to fight the coach's fight. Those things always seem to end up with like an injury or a weird withdrawal. Like it's tough to pick up the phone and call, say Barber if she's just barely lost to Fiorot or something. Like,
yeah. So I'll say this to Dev. So there's a lot of things that people aren't. One, Manon Fiorot is I think she's an issue for both those fighters. Now, does she win? I'm not saying she wins, but she's bigger than both of them. Even though I know Shevchenko used to be a bantamweight, Manon Fiorot is still bigger. She's longer than them. She's more technical striker than both of them. Now, she's not as explosive. Nowhere near as explosive as either one of those, but she's more technically sound. And she's an underrated grappler. I mean, she took the only takedown that happened tonight was from her. The only time we had anybody on top of the other one was her when Blanchfield went for a takedown and she reversed it. She didn't panic when she was in, it looked like a deep guillotine. So there's a lot. And plus, what does another fight, say Grasso and Shevchenko has a 5-round war like the last one? What does that take out of them? Especially Shevchenko, who's older, has been there, My one issue with so I'll tell you what I'm going to do with. So you're going much lower. I'm telling Manon Fiorot, screw it, like sit out, just sit on the sidelines and wait. Now that's a long way. Now you're taking a chance because what happens if that fight gets delayed? What happens when one gets hurt? What happens? To me, if someone gets hurt, she just has to move in. But here's the question: what if Shevchenko wins? If Shevchenko wins, you kind of have a Moreno, Davidson, Figueiredo situation where it's 1-1-1. Does Grasso have enough clout where, she hasn't been a champion for long, and she wouldn't have a successful title defense, unless you're counting a draw as a title defense. But does it also feel right to move on from a trilogy when it's 1-1-1?
I would hope the UFC would tell Grasso to go win a fight somewhere.
Yeah, I hope so too, because the Moreno, I know it's not apples and oranges. The Moreno and Figueiredo situation was 1-1-1, but also there really wasn't anybody ahead of the pack at flyweight, like really big. I know I guess Pantoja was, but Pantoja wasn't headlining UFCs, even though he probably should have, but he wasn't headlining main events. He didn't have a whole country. He obviously has Brazil, but not there's a whole bunch of Brazilians different than France. It's not a market they're really trying to bust into. They've already been very well established. So, it's not the same situation.
Right.
He already fought them. So it was, he already fought Moreno. Did he fought Figueiredo? I mean, he fought Moreno.
Pantoja had not, but he fought Moreno twice.
Yeah, he fought Moreno twice. Yeah. So that I would have Manon Fiorot sit. I know that's not a popular decision, but I'd have Manon Fiorot sit. Blanchfield, I'm going much higher than you. for her next match. I'm doing the rematch that's been needed to be done forever.
Tracy Cortez.
I'm giving her Tracy Cortez co-main event of. You know what? No, I'm putting on a main card of a pay-per-view, opener of a pay-per-view.
Anthem Tardif points out that they had both fought Pantoja.
Okay.
So that's part of the, okay.
I don't remember that
being a little,
yeah, he lost to Figgy. Okay, I just don't remember that one. Sometimes, although it's so funny, I can remember like fights at UFC 38, but I can't remember ones that happened a couple years ago. So, is there anything else you want to talk about this before we move on?
No, it happened. It's over.
Let me ask you this: was this a good thing? I mean, I know the fight wasn't, but is it a good thing that Manon Fiorot won?
Sure, because Manon Fiorot doesn't have 4 years to retool herself as a fighter as comeback. This was a must-win for her title aspirations, where it wasn't for Blanchfield.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. This is the one where you give the award to the senior over the freshman when you're stuck. Let's see, guys. We have 13 fights and it's already 2 a.m., so we're gonna have to move along. Before that, Vicente Luque took on Joaquin Buckley. Joaquin Buckley winning by second round TKO. Really weird fight.
There were a lot of really weird fights tonight, but yes.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Weird night altogether. I just asked, did the UFC win, or is it a good thing for the UFC that Manon Fiorot won? I think it's a great thing for the UFC that Joaquin Buckley won. Nothing against Vicente Luque, but he is what he is at this point.
I agree. Whereas Joaquin Buckley is turning into something new. We've known for a while now that he is capable of a all-timer of a finish. What he has done now, 2 fights in a row, like against Alex Morono and now Vicente Luque. Morono and Luque are not shrinking violets. Those are 2 guys that typically go out on their shield when they go out. And this is 2 fights in a row where Buckley has made someone like that rethink not only his game plan, but apparently all of his life choices. Again, a fight ago, we saw Alex Morono gun shy. That's not normally one of his flaws.
No, he gets his flaws that he goes into wars, but he shouldn't.
Exactly. Like he's a live by the sword, die by the sword guy. But Buckley has turned from a guy who not only can end the fight at any moment with a spinning hook kick, but once somebody tastes his power, it changes their game plan. It's the Mike Tyson, everyone's got a game plan until they get punched in the mouth. 2 fights in a row now. Like, we got Vicente Luque pulling guard.
Yeah, that was so weird. That was so weird. He was losing, but he wasn't getting crushed at that point.
Well, he didn't look like he was getting crushed, but everything, because about 30 seconds before that, Buckley landed I can't remember whether it was a 2-3 or a 3-2, but just like, a pair of punches on the inside that both bounced off of Luque's guard. And nonetheless, you could tell that they hurt like shit, just bouncing off his arms and glancing off his shoulders or whatever. So Luque shoots a slow, desperate looking takedown. It gets pancaked. And instead of fighting back to his feet and dealing with whatever Buckley was going to do to him in the ensuing clinch, he pulls guard. It
was very desperate. It was extremely desperate. And
Buckley is making brave men look desperate in his last 2 fights.
Yeah, and that's the thing I think that's good about Buckley winning. I mean, it's new blood. I mean, I know he's not like some really young fighter, but it's new blood in the top of the division. Instead of Vicente Luque, who we know he is. He's always been a fan favorite because of his style. But listen, he's never going to fight for the title. It's just not him. He's kind of plateaued out. He's showing signs of decline. I thought his fight against RDA, while he won, it looked like 2 really aged guys fighting each other out. I thought Buckley looked good. I mean, he looked fast. I loved his movement. His movement was bothering Luque, specifically his lateral movement. He had when you see a boxer hitting a punching bag when they're really working on their footwork when they're doing it, so they're like one side pop, then they kind of pivot to the other side. He was doing that a lot, where he was not, he was attacking and he was moving from station to station to station to station as he was attacking, so it was kind of hard to counter. I thought it looked good. The question I got to ask, and it seemed like a lot of people keep throwing it in the chat, is Luque shot? What do you think?
I don't know if he's like overnight old man shot. Buckley landed some punches on him that would have knocked a truly old man out. But I think we're seeing the beginning of the slide here. And he may end up being kind of like Brazilian Neil Magny, where it doesn't all happen at once, but just all of a sudden he can't dig quite as deep. He gets hurt a little bit more by stuff he used to shrug off. Just, kind of the way we've seen Magny just have a slow slide. That could be what we have with Luque here.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, there's not many guys in the top of the division right now that I'm taking over for Vicente Luque. Now, he's much younger than I think. I think of him as someone like 36, 37. He's like 32. Just because he's been around for so long and he's been in these wars. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we get some more fun wars and he pulls some upsets. And he, to me, looks like a guy, and we've seen this the last couple fights, and I think we're going to see it more. He, I think, is going to turn from one of these guys we've seen in the past where they're an all-time war, blood and guts kind of person who turns into a grappler more and more and more. I think we've already started seeing it. I think we're going to see it more and more. Like, that's like, if he's going to extend his career, that's what it's going to be. We're going to be known as like jiu-jitsu Luque. I mean, he tried it tonight. I mean, pulling guard was kind of crazy.
Yeah, and if he can squeeze another 5 years out of his career by doing kind of a Tim Means thing like that, like where Tim Means just turned into like a clinch grinder and nullified younger, faster fighters, I'm happy for him. As many paychecks as that dude can collect while not getting another brain bleed, I'm happy for it.
Did you? I don't know if you caught this. Did you see the pool party that your boy Buckley, before, biggest fight of his career, he went to like a pool party? And first of all, who the hell's having a pool party in Atlantic City right now?
It's cold. Maybe it was indoor pool,
or maybe it looked like it was outdoors. But he went to a pool party today. I don't, I wasn't on social media. I saw people posted it to it. I was on Instagram. I don't really do Instagram, but maybe. No,
I heard like it was allude to it, but that was it. Yeah,
it looked like it was someone more hip than me. Post in the chat if I'm wrong, but he went to a pool party today and it was like partying up. I was just like, oh, so Dev's saying it was outdoor. I mean, it's freaking March 30th in New Jersey. How anyway, I mean, I know the weather was, it was like 50 something. It was like 50 degrees here, but man, I don't know, maybe they got a heat wave down in the Jersey Shore or something. But at first I saw it and I'm like, that's crazy. That's so stupid. Like, what are you doing? This is big fight. You need to focus. Then I said, yeah, some people, they're different. Some people they got to be loose. And I'm like, what if this just becomes a thing? Like, what if every single time he hits a city, he just parties with the people? And it just becomes like he's in Buffalo and like right before he fights, he jumps through a table. Or I don't know. He goes to Salt Lake City and he goes out with a bunch of Latter-day Saints guys and I don't know what they do. Play Scrabble late at night or something. I don't know.
Pretty much.
What do the Mormons do?
Yeah.
I thought that was great. I hope that, listen, if he ever, you know what? If he ever comes to like this, if he comes to Boston, I'm coming to card. I'm going to go party with Buckley before he fights.
Sure, dude. Like, that's amazing. What a great, if that becomes a thing, I am 100% behind it.
Who should he fight next?
I wrote something down before they even got in the cage together, and I'm still with it. Buckley was in for Sean Brady on this one. I was going to say let the winner still fight Sean Brady. I like Buckley versus Brady. Okay. Give the loser Muslim Salikov. So okay. I've got Luque versus Salikov, Buckley versus Brady.
I'm going to go Luque. I'm going to go with a prospect. The only like really rising prospect at welterweight that hasn't got that name test yet is Michael Morales, and I think it's time. I think it's time. Michael Morales versus Vicente Luque. At this point, Vicente Luque's career, it's just about getting other guys over.
And he'd agree to it, so I'm fine with that as well.
Buckley I thought I saw people putting Jeff Neal in there. I thought about doing Jeff Neal, like,
but Neal's lost a couple in a row. So.
Yeah, but the guy I'm giving him has lost a couple in a row too. But he's a bigger name, and that's Kevin Holland. Buckley can talk a little bit. Holland can talk.
They've already fought.
Have they?
Yeah, Holland knocked him out.
Fight again.
Okay, I'm in. Some people were saying, and Anthony Tardif and Icy Vegeta both say MVP. MVP versus Buckley.
Oh, MVP's not taking that fight. He's too big of a star. Why would he do that?
Yeah.
I mean, MVP. I know him and Stephen Thompson are like buddies now, but he's got to be. I mean, Stephen Thompson, Colby. He's fighting a name. He's not fighting Buckley. But I mean, I could be wrong, but I could see him and Usman, MVP versus Usman, if they want to do something like that. I just speaking of names, the biggest name on this card is not Bruno Silva. It was his opponent tonight, Chris Weidman, the former middleweight champion, back to his winning ways as he won a technical decision. We'll get to that in a minute. Defeating Bruno Silva. Do you want to talk about the action first, or do you want to talk about the controversy?
You know what? Let's talk about the action first, because there were definitely some takeaways. It's not like this thing was over in 45 seconds. They fought for almost 2.5 rounds. We saw some stuff. I was surprised by a few things. Let's talk about it. Can
I pull back the curtain and kind of let people know what you guys were talking about? I haven't, especially on I don't have the app. Like, I have an app on my phone, but it doesn't give me notifications. So for me to like go into the Sherdog Slack, I got to remember to click on the Slack button and kind of update. So I'll do that like once a week. I'll remember to do that. Then I have to like catch up on this. Say you have 472 messages. But I was checking the Slack, and this is what Ben was doing during the Slack during the Chris Weidman fight. When he was winning, he just kept like over and over saying, Chris Weidman's back. My boy's back. He's top contender again. He's going for the title. Maybe double champ. Like, that's what Ben just kept. So Ben, tell the people why you believe so much in Chris Weidman, that the former champion is going to become the champion again.
Obviously, Keith is lying his ass off about that. But I will say this: Weidman looked way better than I expected. Way better than he had any right to. Again, through 2 rounds, and part of this is going to be because Silva just continues to age like a banana. But Weidman looked good. He was throwing kicks with the bad leg. Almost just proved to himself that he could. His defensive as well as offensive wrestling looked kind of on point. I mean, he took some flush shots from Silva. And the last thing Silva has going for him is he still does hit pretty hard if he hits you square. He hit Weidman squarely a few times. I assumed Weidman's chin was shot like after I can't remember whether it was Romero or Jacare, the one that just lamped him with a knee to the chin. Weidman looked good through 2 rounds. Okay, thank you. Yeah, it was Romero.
It was in New York City.
Yeah.
Weidman was actually winning before that, and then he got knocked out. Yeah.
Well, because that was like only the second strike that Romero threw all night. Yeah, Weidman looked real good, and or Silva continues to look worse and worse with each fight. So, yeah, Weidman looked like a guy that if I didn't know his long history of being replaced with cyborg parts, like one piece at a time, I would say, maybe he's got a few more fights in him at age 39.
Yeah, I mean, he looked good, but what was impressed me, besides him throwing the bad leg, I mean, I think that was a big psychological thing. He just keeps coming out kicking with it right away. Is suddenly Chris Weidman at 39 was like, when did kicks become such a big part of Chris Weidman? Like, he was always throwing kicks, but not to that degree. And I just said it's got to be because of training with Stephen Thompson now. That's his full camp. And he threw so many kicks, especially early on. I saw people like bashing his cardio. I thought his cardio was fine. I don't think he looked tired at all.
Yeah,
especially for a 39-year-old guy.
Yeah,
I mean, he's not freaking Marab out there, but
his thing was always to fight at a deliberate pace for however many fights.
Even
how many rounds it was. Yeah,
always.
But no, I agree. Like, he's throwing lots of kicks to both sides, to all levels. I I don't know if that's the most kicks Weidman's ever thrown in a fight, but it sure feels like a bigger part of it. And the thing is, he and Thompson have been training together for years and years, but mostly it was Thompson coming up to New York and clearly picking things up from the Sarah Longo Weidman guys. Now it looks like it's Chris going down to South Carolina and getting some karate from Pops Thompson.
Yeah, and I think what's probably good about that, I think it's always good to get different looks, go with different people. You can't get a little stagnant being on the same team for a really, really long time. At least
especially once the building has your name on it and you're clearly the alpha guy.
Yeah, you're the face of the team. You're Chris Weidman. You're the most successful guy to come out of the team. Like you're the man. But also going with Stephen Thompson, I mean, you're 39. This is a guy who's in his 40s, so he understands aging and having to adjust. And he's a guy who fights at an even harder division and has still been one of the top ranked guys. No, he's not on a run. He's not going to fight for the title or anything like that. But he's been consistent enough to keep himself that high. Whereas Stephen Thompson fights, you're not like, oh God, here's a guy I don't want to see fight ever again. Like we have with so many other people at their ages. So I think that's a good thing. Anytime you can go from Staten Island, whether to South Carolina, might be a good choice too. I thought Weidman looked good. I was surprised he was when he was hurt a couple of times, and like never really seriously hurt, but hit with some clean shots, how he could buckle down and fire back and land some good power shots himself right back. Like he kept every time I thought like, okay, this is where the tide turns, this is where we go. Oh wow, Weidman was doing well until he got knocked out. He found a way just to bite down and land and kind of back Silva right back up. And I was like, that was really impressed me. Now, I'm not like Ben. I'm not saying he's going to be a champion again or a title contender. I mean, he still beat Bruno Silva, who's lost 5 out of 6 fights. But he looks like he's like top 40. No? Top 45?
Yes. I mean, Silva is 1-4 and now 1-5 in his last 6. So he's a guy on the downslide, but he might not be the worst middleweight in the division. Like there are other guys in the division that Weidman could have beaten tonight as well. Weidman looked as good as he has in years.
All right. So before we move on to the eye pokes, the one thing that does concern me, and I said this on the previous show, and I feel even more confident now. I think Weidman's wrestling is completely gone. His entries are slow. He had no setup on his entries. He really telegraphed when he was coming in. I don't expect him to take many people down now.
He didn't have great success with it, but I was happy just with his willingness to try it a few times. I think even that fed into things and made for a better performance against Silva, just giving Silva something to think about. Because there's a possibility that Silva came into this thinking, there's no possible way Weidman tries to take me down unless it's a desperation thing. But Weidman tried a few times. His days of dominating with wrestling are definitely over.
Yeah. I think he might, if he continues to fight into his 40s, I think we might get a lot more how like Yoel Romero used his wrestling, where he shoots 1 or 2 times a fight instead of like how he was wrestling and chain wrestling and grinding like Darren Elkins. We're not going to get that anymore.
No.
All right, let's get to the eye pokes. So originally this fight was ruled a TKO win in the 3rd round for Chris Weidman. The video review showed 2 pokes in the eye during the final exchange. But before that, there was 2 other times the fight was stopped because Chris Weidman poked in the eye. I don't think Chris Weidman's a dirty fighter. I don't think that. I think he's a good dude. Like I've met Chris Weidman, interviewed a couple times. He just seems like a really down to earth, cool ass dude. He's one of my, like before I was doing anything for Sherdog, Chris Weidman was like one of my favorite fighters. When you look at guys John Jones poked people in the eyes. People don't remember this. A lot of people young, but remember Chuck the Eyes Man Liddell?
Oh, dude, one of the greatest MMA one-liners of all time was when Dan Henderson said he had the Hawaiian Kempo eye poke, dude. Like it was.
Yeah. It just happens in this sport. You know, he's a guy that he was trying to keep his distance, stay away from Bruno Silva because he's trying to avoid the big one punch shot and doesn't want to get in that pocket with him. And he kept posting. Unfortunately, he kept posting and going right in his opponent's eyes. That said, you can't poke a guy in the eyes 4 times and then win a fight.
Especially when eye pokes lead directly to the finish.
Yeah.
Like if the Sherdog like fight finder was truly accurate, it would have been TKO, eye pokes, and punches. And it would have sounded like us being smart mouths, but literally he finished him off with punches on the ground, but he was only on the ground because Weidman poked him in both eyes. And what you got to keep in mind is sure, they were inadvertent, but at some point they're still your fault. Like if you've been warned that many times and you manage to poke a guy in both eyes with both hands in the same exchange, you're being reckless. And if those fouls end the fight, inadvertent or not, like I would have been fine with Weidman losing via disqualification. And that would have been a shame in its own way because he looked so good. But just going to a technical decision where he's effectively rewarded for this, it doesn't feel good to me. I can't imagine it feels good to anybody, including Weidman, once he cools down and, is re-examining this by the cold light of day tomorrow. He's not going to be happy with the highlight reel of this is going to feature him poking another man in the eyes twice.
Yeah. Well, what they can always do is they can always just show the fast version in the angle where we first saw, so it looked like he just caught him with like a left hook.
Yeah.
So
it looked like some nasty inside punch. It was going to be, oh man, Weidman looks great, but nope.
One thing I propose, and we talk about rule changes and everything a lot. When if I'm cornering a guy and my guy's up 2 rounds to nothing, we hit the 3rd round, I go, dude, go poke him in the eye. Because you're up 2 rounds, well, go to the scorecard now if they can't continue and you win.
Yep.
I think a proposal should be that if a fight ends with an illegal and you don't want to, you say it's not intentional and you want to say it was accidental and you don't say you don't even want to take a point. Like, all right, shit happens. I don't even blame referees too much when it comes to eye pokes because it happens so fast. It's really hard to see. Sure, they're closer than us than watch on TV and they should be more trained to see it than it's like when I was in patrol, I used to joke with my wife when we drive. I go, hey, let's play a little game. We're gonna drive on like a main road. There'll be another car coming like 50 miles per hour coming at us. Tell me when you see the license plate and tell me what the license plate is. And I would pick it up so much faster because that's what I did all the time. That's what when I was in patrol. I'm trained differently. So yeah, I understand it's not like it's harder for us to see on TV. That said, but if someone gets poked in the eye and the fight ends, if you're the one poking in the eye, you shouldn't benefit from the fight being ended.
Right.
If you're the one who committed the foul. Like that should, if you don't want to disqualify the person, it should be a no contest. Now, on the flip side, if you're the one who's, got poked in the eye and now you're going to win because of it, okay, I'm okay with going to scorecards. Like you're the one who got fouled. We'll go to scorecards. Now, no, people can play a game and go, oh, I got poked in the eye. I'm up 2-0. I can't fight anymore. I understand that. But like the referee could still call it no contest or go to scorecards. But the person committing the foul should never benefit for the fight not continuing.
Yeah, agreed. And this is going to end up. It's definitely going to end up being appealed. Whether it will be overturned is anyone's guess. But this thing, you can tell they're making shit up as they go along because they couldn't even go to the scorecards properly. The 3rd round wasn't halfway over. No way should that round have counted anyway, able to continue or not. Like. If they decided it was to go to technical decision, it would have been based on the score of just the first 2 rounds.
Like first 2 rounds. Yes, you wouldn't score.
But they announced it as, and they put up scorecards. They publicized the scorecards, and the judges scored the 3rd round as well, even though it only went like 2 minutes and change.
But you can score just 2 rounds.
Yeah,
to win the fight.
Yeah,
so they could have just scored. Them adding a 3rd scorecard is silly.
It is silly, and it just shows that I think. They were still arguing it out even after Buffer announced the initial TKO. So this is going to get a good hard look. And it's just ironic that it happened on a night when the UFC booth couldn't stop reminding us that New Jersey is the first place that MMA was regulated. And in fact, they didn't say it, but the unified rules that we use, they're the New Jersey rules that ended up getting adopted everywhere. And New Jersey just could not have shit the bed any worse. And okay, last thing I'll say, you mentioned, we can't always blame the ref, because they only see things from one angle. I mean, think about it. From multiple angles, it looked like a punch that put Silva down. But when it's somebody in Copeland that had been out of position all night and had already blown multiple calls or had multiple kind of controversial calls based on not being in position, I feel a little more comfortable blaming him.
Okay.
Like, I don't know if he's too old, too short, or just doesn't know how to be in position, but you can put yourself in spots where you can see what's going on better. I don't know.
So Juicex is saying, not technical decision is scored to the third up to that point. So it doesn't matter how deep into the third.
Oh, okay.
Which is always funny. So what happens if something happens in the first 5 seconds? Do you score?
I guess you scored.
You score the 5 seconds of the round. Like, how does that work?
Yes, you do. Like, he went to the same refereeing classes that I did, but he took better notes. So, like, definitely believe him. Or you scored a 10-10 round. Yeah.
Oh, it scored 10. Well, but what if 5 seconds in the fight? What if 5 seconds in the fight? Like say it's a Fabricio Verdum situation where he runs across the cage and kicks a guy, Travis Brown, he karate kicks him, drops him, and then they poke each other in the eye, and I just feel like I karate kicked that guy in the chest. Like,
I guess he wins the round.
Whatever. That hasn't really happened yet. Where that's been, so I don't want to go too far down. Yeah. But let's do this for a second. How about, like, when they score the round, right? So I didn't look at the scorecards because it was afterwards. So was it 2 rounds to, like, how did they score that third round?
It was 30-27 Weidman. All three.
So they all gave the third round. Okay. How is it not even a point taken on Weidman?
There you go again. How is there not a point taken? Like, a point was taken earlier in the fight, like earlier that night for eye pokes. Like,
yeah,
Weidman's was worse than that.
So I'm saying, like, even if you don't want to disqualify him, you got to at least take a point on him on that third round and then score it. I mean, still, it wouldn't affect the ultimate outcome. It'd still be, instead of 30-27, be 29-27.
No, not necessarily. Because
because you went 10-9 for Weidman, then it'd be 9-9. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so it wouldn't change it, but like, you got to at least take a point from him there. That's just freaking third. It was third and fourth time he poked him. It was in the same exchange. He poked him twice in the eye.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
And it was a really close round right up until the fouls. Like, that you could make an argument that Silva was winning the third round, and if he gets an additional point deduction, then all of a sudden you have a draw.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let me ask you this question. You're the and I know it's tough. It's easy for us to say what you do instead of being in an arena with, thousands of people cheering for one guy, and it's MMA crowd is a little different than like a football. Like, as much as you say rowdy football, like, MMA is a little different. Yeah, they're wanting violence. A bad call in baseball is a little different than MMA. What would you have done if you were a referee?
Once I saw the replay, deducted a point from Weidman and sent it to decision.
I think I'm disqualifying him.
I said that right off the bat. I would not have been upset at that either. Like, obviously, you're going to get shit raining down on your head from the stands, but
yeah. I mean, it's tough. The problem is, it becomes slippery slope, and because the fight right before it, and we're getting this one, Cedricus Dumas was also eye poked that led to a TKO win. So it's kind of like and this is the situation that's going to happen with New Jersey. If they overturn this one, they're probably going to have to overturn the Dumas fight.
Well, here's the thing. I think a no contest is appropriate in the Ruzaboyev Dumas fight because one, there wasn't a history of warnings already, and
Yeah, I
two, it
totally
ended
agree.
in the first round.
Yeah, it was first round. It was first time it happened. It wasn't like in Weidman's situation where you had 4 of them. Weidman didn't commit to what he wants to do, but say Chris Weidman wants to fight again. He wants to fight again. He's coming off a win. He's former champion. He looked pretty good. He looks like he'd be a test for somebody, right? He's a top 40 guy, right?
Yeah.
I don't do this a lot as matchmaker, like say like UFC. This is the freaking no-brainer. It's got to be Bo Nickel. How do you not make that matchup? You sell the all-American wrestler, middleweight champion of the world, MMA legend. I give it to Bo Nickel. Not only do I do a big Bo Nickel, I do it a fight night main event.
If Nickel emerges unscathed
if he beats
at UFC 300,
if he beats Brundage, which is obviously, if he doesn't, then give it like I don't know, give Weidman like Gregor Rodriguez, get over Gregor Rodriguez or something like that. But being that he's like a negative 10,000 favorite or whatever it is, assuming Bo Nickel wins. To me, that's a gift wrap for you.
Yeah.
Tell me why I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong.
If anyone disagrees with me, because you can't sell like. I know there's always going to be people on the internet upset. Oh my God, you're feeding Bo Nickel and has been, and it's like the guy's also got like 6 fights. The guy's been in MMA for like 2 years, fighting a former middleweight champion, coming off a win, who still would be his toughest test. To me, that's a no-brainer. I'm
totally fine with it, and Weidman to be happy to do it.
Dev, shut up. The Iron. You're not wasting Chris Weidman against the Iron. No, actually, the way the UFC does the matchmaking, they probably would.
Probably would. I mean, we saw Frankie Edgar tonight, like the guy that they spent on Chris Gutierrez.
Yeah, I think I have too much of a boxing like mentality when it comes to match. Like I'm using the old guys to get over the next generation. It's just like it's part of your dues. And at one point, Bo Nickel's got to do it for somebody else. 10, 12 years from now, he's got to do it for somebody else. Like, oh, Bo Nickel's getting fed to, Hector Rodriguez, the next big prospect.
At Milano. Just give Weidman to somebody that he can only poke in one eye.
Yeah, there you go. Nice job. Nice job. Speaking of that, Cedric Dumas versus Nursultan Razumov. Razumov poked Dumas in the eye and then finished him off with follow-up strikes. I don't care about Dumas getting poked in the eye.
It's hard for me to muster up too much sympathy. I'm mostly bummed that Nursultan Ruzaboyev, is robbed of an uncontroversial win. But you know what? For what it's worth, he was kind of handling him.
He was handling him.
Yeah, I mean, he was well on his way to getting a clean knockout, possibly that round. So yeah, I mean, both guys are who we thought they were.
Prediction: do you think New Jersey overturns either one of these fights?
I could see the Weidman fight getting a long look. This one probably not.
See, to me, if you're commission, to me, you have to do both. If you're, I mean, listen, nobody dislikes this Dumas guy. I mean, I don't think the guy should be in the UFC. I mean, his criminal history is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's only so many times you'd be in the wrong place at the wrong time. If he showed up to the pool party with Buckley today, he would have I don't know, jumped in the pool and kneed some girl in the head while he did it or something. He'd be freaking drowning a baby or some shit.
Yeah.
But no, take out Dumas and just insert decent human being instead. To me, if you overturn one, you got to overturn both. I know obviously Weidman did it more times, Silva, but the outcomes were still the same way. A poke in the eye led to it. Actually, in fact, I think there's a stronger argument to overturn this one than the overturn the Weidman one, because Weidman did poke him more times, but you're claiming that you're scoring the fight on the action that happened before that and not the knockout. Well, this one is simply on the knockout, which came directly after an eye poke. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm clarifying that enough to, you know what I mean? You guys get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So, but you think that Weidman one might get overturned?
Well, it's a problem if they just leave it as it is, but I don't know, man. Like you make a good point, because they'd have to overturn like a third of the fights on this card if they start opening the floodgates.
Yeah, that might be that might be their way to not meet. Ruzabov, now he's, as of right now, he's 2-0 in the UFC. He's got tons of wins, and he had a rise. Like a lot of people, before this fight, a lot of people were like taking Dumas, upset. This guy Ruzabov, he's overrated. He's not that good. Now I see a lot of the other thing where people are saying, "Oh, this Ruzabov looks legit. He looks great." Where do you stand on that debate?
I am cautiously high on him. I don't think he's a future champ, at least the way he's been fighting so far, but he's about 2 wins away from being on the edges of the top 15 at 185. I mean, it's just such a wide open division. If he turns into another Andre Muniz or not Bruno Silva or Gregory Rodriguez type, where, okay, they came in, they blew through their first 4 or 5 opponents, and then they once they hit the next level, they sort of settled in as a fringe contender. I could see Ruzaboyev turning into that type of guy. Like, I could see him just like wiping out his first 4 opponents. Then once they get him in there against top 15 type fighters, we start to see his ceiling.
Yeah, I agree. If I had to pick one category, legit or overrated, I'm gonna go with legit. Before that, Bill Algeo came in with a lot of hype, but we were probably hyping the wrong person, as Kyle Nelson is now on a 3-fight winning streak, getting a first-round TKO over Bill Algeo. We'll get to the stoppage in a second, but I mean, Kyle Nelson, 3 fights in a row. I mean, is it any belief? Is it time to start giving this guy some credit or what?
It's definitely time to give him some credit. He's doing rare things for a 36-year-old man in the 145-pound division. There's a little bit of smoke and mirrors to it. There's a little bit of wait and see. I don't see him as a future contender. Like, I think the good times are probably going to come to an end eventually here, but I mean, no matter how I feel about the stoppage, he was tuning Aljo up there at the end.
Yeah, I mean, the guy was landing. It's funny when the Canadian tries taunting the crowd, and he's like, "Boo me like this." He's like, "I'll fight I'll fight anybody a week from now if you want to come out of the stands." And he's like, "You like that, A?" Like, you just instantly lose your toughness when you throw it at random A.
Yep.
I thought I was hanging out with my in-laws for a second. For you guys who don't, first time listening to, my wife's Canadian. For born not Canadian heritage, like born and raised in Canada. You kind of hinted to, you thought the fight was an early stoppage. I agree. I've always, and I know I always bring this up, I always go this one time, I thought it was a brilliant analysis that Nolan King, MMA junkie, once said that, you have a kind of a spectrum, like, like a pendulum, like this is the early side and this is the late side, but it's still like okay. I feel like it was in like the okay, but it wasn't like dead center. Like, I let that thing go more. If I'm the referee, I'm letting him eat some more shots.
You have to. You're talking about a guy in Algeo who, 1, had never been stopped with strikes before, and 2, one of his calling cards is coming back from some adversity to win fights. In that situation, you let a man like that take a couple more punches. I mean, I agree. I like Nolan's pendulum metaphor, but if you stop a fight when both guys are still standing, the onus is on the ref to, like, you have to prove to me that was a worthwhile stoppage. And yeah, Aljo was hurt, but he was moving and he was trying to defend himself. He deserved another 5 seconds. Like, that was bad. And this is what I meant by Copeland being out of position. Like, every time he had a stoppage or a fight ending sequence, he was either way too close or way too far. Like, too close to the point that, like, they're practically colliding over him, or too far to the point where he's having to rush in and make snap decisions about stuff that he didn't see very well. Like, it's just another one, man.
Yeah, I just think about all the moments in MMA that if a fight was stopped, when you could argue to stop a fight, all the moments we would have got cheated on. I think about Gray Maynard, Frankie Edgar too, where Frankie Edgar's back rolling, getting teed off on. I think about Chet Congo and Pat Berry and all these.
Lesnar and Carwin. That fight should have been stopped
Lesnar,
3 times in the
yeah.
first round, probably.
Think about all these moments we wouldn't have. And then I wonder, how many moments have we missed out on? How many times has the guy jumped up and argued and we're like, damn, you know, that fight was stopped too early? Or the guy argued, you're like, nah, that was probably a pretty good stoppage. But like, you could have jumped in at any moment in some of those fights and you'd be completely justified.
Yeah.
It's always tough. Like, I know the referees are in a tough situation because, you know, fighter safety this, fighter safety that, blah, 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 blah. It's like, whatever. Like, let's let them beat the shit out of each other. Anyways.
It's what they signed up for. They're consenting adults.
Yeah. Before that, Chidi and Njokuani took on Reese McKee.
Well, that's the rumor anyway, but I didn't see a fight.
Yeah, really weird. It continues the weird theme of the night. Split decision. How? Chidi clearly won the last 2 rounds. Could have won all 3, but clearly won the last 2 rounds.
And the funny thing is that the 2 scorecards that went Chidi's way gave him all 3 rounds. Were, I mean, I gave the first round to McKee. It was a close round, but yeah, it was a weird fight.
Yeah, it really weird. So I want to give a shout out to Scott Fontaine. He's a media member out there. One of the New York outlets. I apologize. I'm not sure which one it is on the top of my head.
Scott Fontana. He's from the New York Post.
Yeah, he has New York Post. So I'm sorry. I forgot his outlet and I didn't pronounce his name right, but I'm trying to give the guy love. Yeah. He tweeted out that it was, and I apologize for saying this person's name wrong, Mamuna Querido, who was the one who gave the really crazy scorecard for McKee. But the point of his tweet was that Querido is a former MMA fighter who turned judge. So the argument when we have bad judging, we get a lot of times say, oh, we need to have fighters do it. That doesn't necessarily solve the problem. So nice job by Mr. Fontana with that tweet. I agree with him.
Completely agree. You know what? Not every former fighter makes a great judge. Not every former fighter makes a great coach. Not every former fighter makes a great commentator. Like, they're different skill sets. I've at this point been in this business for 6 years. 6 years, I think. And I've talked to lots of fighters. I've talked to hundreds, if you're just talking about like press conferences, dozens and dozens. Like, if we're talking about longer form interviews, not all of them understand their own sport all that well.
No.
Some do. And the ones who do are coaches themselves, but a lot of them, they don't know really anything beyond their own skill set, don't know anything about what's going on in the sport other than their own next opponent.
Yeah.
They don't want to. They don't need to. Yeah.
It's like that in all sports, though. I mean, think of one thing I've always hated. I hate when people comment on fights and you have someone saying like, oh, this guy's never been in an MMA fight, what does he know? Or any argument from authority. Like, an argument from authority is what they say, it's a fallacy, right?
Yes.
Like, it's one of those like list of fallacies. Like, you argue with the point they make, not with who made the point. And it's always like, well, who knows more about football? Ocho Cinco or Bill Belichick? One of them played in the NFL, one of them didn't. You know? And kind of the same thing. Like, there's people who, you know, how many fighters, for example, like I'm assuming Marcel Dove has never fought MMA. I'm just mentioning because of the chat. Who knows more about MMA, Marcel Dove or Mike fucking Perry?
No, Marcel Dorf.
Yeah. Like, you know, how many times a fighter says, they ask about like, oh, who do you think's going to win this fight? He's like, I don't really watch MMA. Like, fighters say that all the time. You know? Now, what's the answer for judging? I don't know. We're not going to go on that right now, but yeah, I just wanted to put that one out. Let's talk about the fight itself. McKee's, I'll say this, he's really tough he's just not skilled. Like he lacks the skill needed to be in the UFC.
I agree. And I mean, he fought a pretty good Reese McKee fight here. Just, yeah, I agree. Like it's hard to point to anything he does at a UFC level, and yet he looks like such a world beater on the regional scene. Like he looked good, racking up, I think, 3 straight wins in Cage Warriors and winning their welterweight title. And normally winning a title in Cage Warriors is a predictor of good success in the UFC.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not all Conor McGregor's, but you at least are going to come over and make some noise. But McKee just ain't it. And at this point, I mean, he lost a super deliberate paced kickboxing match against Anthony Njokuani. Last time we saw him, he was just getting blown apart by Khamzat Chimaev and getting kind of bullied and wrestled into the dirt by Alex Morono, which again is not Morono's usual thing. Beating now 41-year-old judo Jim Wallhead. Yeah, that's okay. That wasn't the best part of his run in Cage Warriors. I'd like just not fair to pull that one on me, JP.
Yeah, so Chitty, he picked up about the second round. He picked up his timing, couldn't miss. And then he just had to batter him. Stepping knees, was crushing him to the bottom of the stepping knees. When McKee really tried to wrestle, Chitty was beating him to the point of contact, stopping his takedown, blasting him knees, hitting him with short striking, short elbows, short dirty boxing. Then when they were at distance, calf kicking him, and it just became a one-sided affair the last 2 rounds. Again, not the most exciting fight, but yeah, it felt like 2 guys fight for the job, and just Chitty was levels above.
Agreed. Having said that, I still hate Njokuani at welterweight and wish he would go back up to middleweight. Just at welterweight, he doesn't trust his own gas tank, so he slows way down. Like it's not good. Anyway,
before that, Nate Landwehr took on Jamal Emmers. Emmers looked fantastic for about 2 minutes. Was teeing off him. I was like, "Holy shit!" Emmers about to put him out. Like he looked like he was shot out of a cannon. And Nate Landwehr does what Nate Landwehr does, and he just got on the gas, put the pressure on Emmers, forced him on his back foot. Emmers starts checking the clock early in the first round, and this is a perfect example of just pressure overtaking guy. Yeah, of course, Landwehr landed 1 or 2 huge shots and put him out, but it was the pressure before that. The pressure set it up. Emmers was he wanted out.
Is it too early to add Nate Landwehr to the club? Is he Nate fucking Landwehr at this point? Like, dude, he looked. I mean, it looked like the end of a Darren Elkins fight, just with more knockout. Like, just how could you get that bloody in 4 minutes of a fight that you won? He looked like he got.
Yeah, in fairness to Darren Elkins, it would have been much later in the fight. Yeah, it wouldn't have been the first round. It would have been the last 30 seconds.
Landwehr was that bloody within 2 minutes. Like,
I mean, Elkins always looks like
like Elkins looks at the end of his fights. He looks like he's been in a car accident. Landwehr looks like he wasn't wearing his seatbelt and he like went through the windshield. Honestly, he's lucky he got the finish because there were like 15 seconds on the clock. As weird as tonight was, couldn't you just see this thing being stopped on cuts between rounds? Like Emmer survives that extra.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
No,
good point.
I called this one. I think I called this one wrong. Yeah, I called Emmer in this one.
So did I.
I'm not mad at this at all. Nate Landwehr's going to do that to people once in a while, and it's always fun to have a post-fight interview by an American where I feel like I need subtitles. You know, can we get a translator from, not Tennessee for me?
Is that yeah. Get some Southern. Is that Southern? Or is that Tennessee's Southern? That's not Midwest, right? That's Southern, right?
Yeah, Tennessee's. It's. I mean,
I don't know where the South. What considers the South?
It's a twang. They're south of the Mason-Dixon line. They got more Waffle House and IHOP. He's definitely Southern.
There you go.
Yeah.
He's in. Speaking of matchups. On paper and in the rankings, one of the fight that probably should have been much higher up the card. Verna Jandiroba took on Luque Godinez. Verna winning a unanimous decision. I will say this about these two fighters. They can't be more different. Not in the way they fight, but the attributes. Verna is smart and crafty. She does everything possible to put herself in the best position to win. And Luque does the opposite. Luque does everything possible to try to give away fights, despite being a better athlete, more explosive, more tools. And it was the perfect collision in that. Luque should have won this fight.
Yes.
She just refused to let her hands go. She fights out of anytime she threw punches, she was landing and hurting Jandiroba. The problem is she lets her opponent stick around. She almost did it against Cynthia Calvillo, had a much closer fight than Cynthia Calvillo needed to. She did it against it, and she lost to Angela Hill because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And she did it again tonight, Verna Jandiroba. She lets her opponent stick around, and in the first and third round, both rounds that were, in her favor, but again, not pulling away, just kind of like it felt to me like the turtle in the hair kind of situation where like just finish the race, just go, and she keeps it close, and then Verna gets a takedown, gets back control, steals the first round. Now it's 1-1 because I thought she didn't crush the second round, but I thought she won the second, but it was good, could have been either way. And then the third round, she's winning that round, and I go, okay, Lupe's gonna win, and then Verna does it again, and now she lost. So to me, it's just like I thought Verna did everything to win, and Lupe did not, and I'm happy Verna won.
I completely agree. Jandiroba is just smart, grindy. I think the RDA comparison does kind of hold up. I mean, she doesn't have quite the same physical diesel as like lightweight RDA, but similar thing in just being very methodical, top position grappler.
Jake Shields,
Jake Shields, that's a good comparison too. Somebody who's not a great wrestler, but a good enough grappler that it almost makes up for it. Because, I mean, she got taken down and just did like an immediate sweep. And played on Godinez as just not really having much in the way of a fight plan. If you go in against Verna Jandiroba and you don't know what you want to do, you're setting yourself up to get upset.
Yeah. So John Butterfield's asking who scored the round for Lupe. I scored the second round for Lupe, but I'm okay with anybody who scored it for Jandiroba. It was super close.
Yeah.
I just thought the first and third were definitely going to Lupe, and then Verna stole the rounds from her. I think Lupe is going to be one of those people that has all the talent in the world and just will never put it all together. I think her own head is just always she's going to continue. Every time she takes one step forward, she's going to take one step back. Jandiroba is on a 3-fight winning streak. I mean, we're talking about top 5, 7 ranked. I don't know where she is on the Sherdog rankings, but she's up there. So I'm not going to ask you, do you believe in her? But, she's a tough out for anybody, based on that stuff. Other than maybe Tatiana Suarez, she's a tough out for anybody. So what would you do with her next?
You know what? I know I was supposed to think about a next step forward, and I totally spaced it because I was doing the play-by-play. So
okay, I'll give you one.
Hit me.
I'm just gonna go with the loser of the title fight, Weili Zhang versus Yan Xiaonan. Have her fight the loser of that matchup.
I like that. I mean, I don't believe in her as a future title contender, but if she beats the loser of that fight, she's right there.
Especially if Weili Zhang is the loser. If she beats Weili Zhang, I mean, forget it. Before that, one of the fights that it seemed like the public was really excited about after the preview show, Julio Arce took on our favorite fighter, Herbert Burns. Julio Arce won by second round TKO. We call this fight, this is another one, like I said, we don't brag about picks, but the way the fight goes down, we kind of slammed this one. It wasn't as exciting as I hoped it would be. I was hoping, that Herbert Burns would have to get dragged out of the cage by Gilbert Burns. But if the fight went like 2 more minutes, it probably was going that way. As Julio Arce battered Herbert Burns to the body, which was really smart. Burns has no wrestling, no setups, just so telegraphed. And Arce can still hit, and he's accurate, and Arce wins.
All the bad things. Burns, yeah, he has terrible cardio. The problem isn't that. That's a known thing. The problem is what happens when he runs out of cardio. Just by late in the first round, when he ended up on his back, like trying to wave Arce into his guard, I'm like, oh, are we here already? Shit, this is going to be ugly second round.
I like how Juzek says Burns gets hit and flops like a soccer ball. That's actually a really good, like, yeah.
It really is. He reacts worse to getting hit than any fighter I can remember with as much experience as him. That's it. Like the only bad thing
the only bad thing is soccer players have good cardio.
Yeah, like
there you go. That's for all the Europeans who say I always bash soccer for no reason. So there you go. I say they got good. They don't have wrestling cardio. Let's be honest, but they got good cardio
for the skills he has, and he's not a perfect fighter. Like he doesn't have any wrestling. His defensive striking isn't great, but for a fighter that has the skills he does, like he's a pretty good offensive striker. He has good power. He is a very, very good grappler. He's one of the biggest underachievers we've ever seen. Like he is one of the ultimate front runners in MMA history. Just he is so different from Gilbert.
So my son's, I don't want to name names, but my son's wrestling team has one kid's actually in college now, but he's an incredible all-time great wrestler, multi-time state champion, New England champion, wrestling in college. Incredible. He's the Gilbert Burns of the family. Then we have that brother who goes to the same team, but this is a high-level team. Like this is like we got killers in this team. Like, we have killers. And then you have the brother who's like goes and he has no interest in doing the sport. You can see it every practice, just does not want to be there. Like, that's Herbert Burns. Like he looks like he fights MMA who had no interest in doing it. The Burns family is making him do it. Like his parents are ordering him to, like you get dropped off, so make the best of it. And that's what I feel like we got going on with Gilbert. I was going to be with Herbert.
It must be. Like, is he the Nick Sarah of the Burns family? I don't know. Like it's.
So I don't want to go too crazy about it. So there's some things I love how Arce went to the body. There's one thing I hated. I hated that he was circling the cage against Herbert Burns. I thought he should have been using more movement instead of backing towards the cage. And he was trying to. I think he wanted the cage so if he got taken down, he could wall walk back up. The problem is on the flip side. It's easier to trap against a cage. I mean, if it works for him, it works for him, but I'm not crazy about that. The other thing, obviously, is Julio Arce missed weight.
And we're talking about a guy that was fighting at 135 before his time away from the sport. Like his last couple fights in the UFC were at 135. That's not nice, not good.
Juice says Herbert Burns fights like Frank Stallone acts. I'll give you a very, very quick story time with Keith. I have a crazy uncle, like Uncle Do Marriage, like, great, like, but he's just crazy. Somehow he like has befriended Frank Stallone, and he's like my uncle and my cousin. They're both, everyone's got a family with a couple screws loose. They've gone out to like freaking Los Angeles and like hung out with Frank Stallone. I don't know. And then they will send me like a random picture of them with Frank Stallone. Anyways, there you go. This story time with Keith. Right now, how many people think of looking up say, who the hell's Frank Stallone?
You can figure it out from the name.
Yeah, just really weird that Julio Arce missed weight. If you gave me a list of guys that was on the card, I don't think that like who's gonna miss weight. I think Julio Arce might have been my last pick.
Yeah, he might have been the very last one. Like considering that Chidi and Njokuani made championship weight, didn't even need the pound. Yeah, come on, Arce, be better, because all that does is detract from what should have been and still is in some ways. One of your better performances.
Before that, sorry guys. Before that, Dennis Bazooka took on Connor Matthews. Dennis Bazooka won by 3rd round TKO. You feel any better about Dennis Bazooka after that win?
I feel bad. I feel like a hater here, but I'm not sure I do. Bazooka seemed like the kind of the same fighter he has been in his previous run, just against a opponent that it worked on.
Yeah, Matthews was trying to pressure him. The problem is, and I think the commentator did a good job of this. He was pressuring, but not throwing enough. Like he was getting to the pressure, getting to the space he wanted, and then refusing to let his hands go enough. And he struggled with the speed and the power of Bazooka and the accuracy. And I thought it was going to be a really close fight, but it really wasn't. It was a pretty one-sided affair. Let me ask you this question. And I was thinking this. Is there a region, if you're breaking up MMA in regions, is there a region in America that's worse MMA than New England? Mind you, for listeners, I live in New England.
Well, compared to how big its population is and, how much it has to offer in other sports, it certainly might be the most underachieving area I can think of.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, people have mentioned Alaska. Yeah, but compare Alaska to all of New England, southern New England, northern New England. I mean, I was writing this down recently. This is some of the guys' records recently. Cater, he's considered like the face of New England, maybe the best fighter in New England. He's lost 3 out of his last 4. Rob Font lost 4 of his last 5. And I just had to write random other guys. Fabio Charant 0-3. William Knight lost 3 in a row. Chris Martino 0-2, Connor Matthews 0-1, Brendan Marat 0-2, Nick Fury 0-2, Joe Lazon's retired, grossly overrated fighter. Peter Barrett 0-2, Mike Rodriguez 2-7, Rady Costa lost 3 in a row. Yeah, I'll do it. I think New England is the worst region.
Jay, now do Jay Ellis's record. He says,
yeah.
I don't think Ellis should have to count for New England because I think he's technically homeless. So,
I mean, I guess we go like, hey, the Northwest and like Wyoming and North Dakota, like they're not producing many champions. Wait, I can't even do that because I'm freaking Sean O'Malley in Montana.
Yeah, Sean O'Malley's from Montana.
To count New England, I got to count a bunch of Brazilians that are living in Connecticut with Glover Teixeira and try to claim them as our own. Before that, Anton Tecali. Oh, sorry, my voice is really, really leaving me. Anton Tecali. Sorry, guys, I got a cold. Take on Ibo Aslan in the big rivalry grudge match with Aslan winning by 3rd round TKO. I don't think either of these guys are good, but this fight was fun as hell. Talk to me about it.
It was a hell of a lot of fun. They're both slightly better fighters than they were the first time they met, but I mean, still, they're both still marginal talents, even in that division. I played out kind of like the first fight did. Aslan kind of marked up Tecali on the feet. Tecali was Tecali had a good first round. Like I scored the first round for him. He managed to just use calf kicks and his jab to keep Aslan off of him, but Aslan just crashed the pocket, nailed him with an overhand right in the 3rd round, and it was the first of Copeland's kind of stoppages of the night. So
yeah, it was definitely an early stoppage. I mean, I thought Aslan was on his way to a victory anyways. The guy's 13-1. I mean, his only career loss he's now avenged, so there is some to take with that. The other positive I'd say is he got a 3rd round TKO. So again, I agree with you with the stoppage was early, but one of the the storylines was that he doesn't have the gas tank the way he fights. Well, he showed that he does. I mean, even the fight, as the fight's going on, the commentator kept talking about, Aslan's slowing down. I'm like, is he? It looks like it's me. I mean, his defense sucked. I mean, both guys' defense sucked. They're just two sluggers with that black head moves. They're just like rock 'em, sock 'em robots. But there was some fun moments. So I think some positives moving forward with that. So, like, I like him a little bit better now than I did 4 or 5 days ago. I mean, I'm still not high on him. I'm just not going to pick him to win many. I mean, for Fabian Sharon, I would, but there's not many guys that I would. We'll see. I'll give him a slight arrow moving up. Before that, Andre Petrosky took on Jacob Malkoun. Jacob Malkoun winning by second round TKO. Ben, you're a former wrestler. I'm a former wrestler. We both have spent countless hours in the wrestling room. I'm still in the wrestling room because of my son, and I'm there for like 4 days a week. I've been around wrestling forever. I've never seen anybody knock themselves out shooting it on a guy onto the hip bone.
That I was still wondering exactly what happened there, but yeah, it looks like he just basically took the hip bone right on the side of the head and basically knocked himself out. That was or knocked himself out or hurt himself real bad to the point where he just kind of had to turtle up. But we got a great soccer kick to the body.
That soccer kick was mean. You know what? But the only thing that might be more crazy than Andre Petrosky knocking himself out, somehow shooting into the hip bone, is in the first round, all 3 judges scored the first round for Petrosky in a round that I thought was clearly Malkoun's.
Obvious.
All 3 judges.
I'm telling you, man, it was a rough night for referees and judges. It was something, man.
That said, Malkoun continues to win the UFC. I mean, if you give them the Brendan Allen win, that a lot of people thought he should have won, and then give him the Brundage win that he was on his way to winning, this got to be on a 6-fight winning streak in the UFC. Just think about a win over Brendan Allen, where he would stand right now if that was. He might be headlining, next week's card instead of Brendan Allen.
And it would be, and still is, one of the more unlikely success stories. Because, dude, tell me how he's doing this. He is as undersized at 185 pounds as his buddy and training partner, Rob Whittaker, but he doesn't have Whittaker's striking. He doesn't have Whittaker's elite athleticism. How is he doing this?
He's intelligent. He fights with pressure. He's a very underrated wrestler. I think his striking is better than maybe we'll credit. He's a gamer. It's really like he's the complete opposite of Luque Godinez. Like he gets it done.
Yeah,
I like him. And this is the guy that had we talk about people coming in the UFC with hype, and this guy had no hype. He had hate coming in. Like, why is this guy in the UFC? He's taking a spot for somebody else.
Oh, you mean the guy that showed up because he was Whittaker's training partner and got blown out of his sneakers in 18 seconds by Phil Hawes? Yeah, that guy's not ever going to be on the verge of the top 10 in the UFC. Oh, except he is. I'm here for it. I love it. Because you know what?
In that division, I am not picking him to win the title.
No.
But it is not out of the realm of possibility in that division. Again, I'm not picking it.
No, I'm not picking it either. And it would be the most comical visual ever to see him in there against an Alex Pereira type, a dude just like a foot taller than him. Yeah, but it's happening. It's happening right before our very eyes. Jace X says he's the new Forrest Griffin, except Griffin had one thing going for him. He was a huge 205 pounder.
Huge.
But aside from that, yeah, he wasn't athletic. Despite the size, he didn't have much power. He was just smart and tough and okay at everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I think of Malkoun's chance of like being a UFC champion. Like, again, I don't think it's good, but I feel like if you're in the audience of like Price is Right, like there's a chance you come home with a brand new car if you're in the audience.
Yeah.
It's not on your favor, but it's, you're not outside in the parking lot. You didn't get a ticket and still think you're walking out with a car. Before that, Caroline Laughlin took on Angel Pacheco. They opened up the card. I'll say this about Angel Pacheco: that dude can take a beating. It's 2 fights in a row. He got his ass handed to him. Laughlin was the complete opposite of Jacob Buck, who came in with tons of hype, lost his UFC debut, picked up a win here. Where are you? Are you in the believing camp? Are you in the I don't believe? Did this win change your opinion one way or the other?
I'm still not super high on him. Just 135 is it's not a division for a fighter who can't decide what he is. Because when you and I previewed this fight, and I'm pretty sure we both picked him to win, it almost sounded like we were talking about two completely different fighters. Like I was talking about a boxer and you were talking about a wrestler. And he only seems to decide from one fight to the next which he wants to be. Because you can make a good argument that his best single tool is his wrestling. But then in this fight, I don't even think he tried to bring the fight to the ground for the first 2 rounds. He just, almost to make a point, beat the shit out of a man with his boxing.
No, he got a takedown in the second.
Okay.
He got takedown, but still, yes. Majority of the fight was striking against a guy who's known for his boxing. So yeah, I think that's a positive. His strike was a little bit. He's still too stiff. He doesn't move his head. I'm still in that. I don't believe in the guy. Like I'm not a believer. I know our own Sean Sheehan would be hating on me for hating on an Irishman, but I'm not believing him. So, all right, there you have it. We've covered all 13 fights. Let's get to some fun stuff. It's 3:15 in the morning. We gotta hurry this up. Do we have any awards, Ben?
Yep, we got we have our bonuses. They are a fight of the night and 2 performances of the night.
All right. How about this? Give me what you would give, not what the UFC did.
Okay, I wouldn't give a fight of the night. I didn't think any of the individual fights were all that great.
I'm gonna disagree.
I'd give. All right. I mean,
I'm gonna give that slugfest between Takali and Aslan as fight of the night. I love.
Then you agree with whoever was making those decisions for the UFC tonight. I don't think it was Dana. I don't think Dana was there because that did win your fight of the night.
So you would have given more performance bonuses.
Yeah, I would have given more performance bonuses.
Let's hear them. What would you would give?
I would have given a performance bonus to Dennis Bazukia.
Okay.
I would have given a performance bonus to Joaquin Buckley. I would have given a performance bonus to Nate Landwehr. That's a real obvious one.
Okay.
And I would have given one to actually, I probably would have given one to Iba Aslan as the 4th one.
Okay. All right, I'll give you two of mine. We're kind of close on the same. I definitely give it to Nate Landwehr. That was so much fun. I'm gonna go with the guy that had the first round knockout. That was the most one-sided first round knockout. I mean, I think it was an early stoppage, but it was just like a complete thrashing. I'm gonna go with Kyle Nelson. I would give him a bonus tonight.
Great. Yeah.
So what was UFC's?
UFC gave fight of the night to Aslan versus Turkali. 2 performances of the night. One for Jamal Emmers for his come from behind win over.
They said that backwards.
Nate Landwehr for his come from behind win over Jamal Emmers in a one hell of a fun round, and Dennis Bazukia for thumping Connor Matthews early in the 3rd round.
Yeah, that's life changing for a guy like that too. Yeah, a guy he's fighting for his career there. So good for him. All right, Ben, my cut list is big, really big. I got 5 guys on my cut list.
Okay, give me just a moment here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5 as well. Maybe they're the same 5.
Wow. So the way the cut list works, if both me and Ben have, you know what? I have 6. I'm sorry. I had another side note over here. Oh no. Never mind. I'm cutting that one. No, sorry. I have 5. My notes were for my Bears. Sorry. So both me and Ben have the same names on the cut list. We give UFC permission to get rid of that person. Do you want to throw your names out? You want me to throw my names out?
I'll throw mine out, and we'll see who got saved, if anybody. Anton Turkali. At this point, he has lost 4 in a row, and this one was the only really even competitive one, and he still got knocked out.
Yep, I agree.
Herbert Burns.
Oh man,
he's lost 3 in a row. Yeah, he fights only once every 2 years, but we're not forgetting, dude. We remember what happened last time.
Yeah, if he crawled out of the octagon like he was stuck in like the desert for like a week, then I would that'd be entertaining. Then I would have kept him. But that was he's got enough cardio now that he actually can walk out of the cage. So yes, get rid of him.
Cedric Dumas. He's at the end of his Dana White's Contender Series contract. He's 2-2. No better time to cut your losses, UFC.
Yeah, I mean he got screwed tonight, but the guy's been arrested like freaking 10 times.
He was arrested. He's been arrested this year while in camp for this fight.
I think he's been arrested 2 or maybe even 3 times since he's joined the UFC. Yeah, since the Contender Series. So yeah, get rid of that guy.
And
so with
Bruno Silva.
3.
Bruno Silva.
Okay, so I saved Bruno Silva because of the way the fight ended. Like I just don't think he should have lost tonight because of. I mean, he was losing. He doesn't have it, but I'm not gonna. I'm not cutting a guy after he got eye poked 4 times in a fight.
Okay, I'm fine with him. I'm
but
fine
I saved
with him.
Bruno Silva. And who's your 5th one?
Oh, I feel bad, but cut Reese McKee again. Like he's 0-4 across 2 different stints with the UFC. And when they match him up against lower level people, I mean, the fights are sort of competitive, but they're still not much fun.
So there you go. We've cut 4 people each. We had him. So the only difference, I saved Bruno Silva. You saved Angel Pacheco. He's been in fun fights, but he's got back-to-back losses. He hasn't won. Like he didn't win to get out on the Contender Series to get out in the UFC. You got to at least win your UFC debut. He got thrashed in that one, so I'm cutting Angel Pacheco. Let's do some dude seriously. I don't have that many this week, but I'll do some dude seriously for you. Your boy Gary Copeland did not have a good night, but when he started telling Aslan to stretch out his balls when he got kicked, I don't know if that works, but telling him to stretch it out, dude, seriously.
Like, do you know how balls work?
Just balls, stretch it out. Like, what's he? Imagine if he just let him reach his hand down his pants instead of just stretch it out of the balls.
Just stretch it out. Just show him the bat wing. Just kind of flashlight through it. Like, what do you want, dude? Yeah, that's definitely a dude. Seriously, got any more?
Yeah, I got one more. Julio Arce saying like, I'm back and I'm at 145, but you waited at 147. Like, dude, seriously.
Yeah, that was, I mean, short of asking for a bonus like Manel Kopp, like that's about the dumbest thing you can do after missing weight.
You got any? You have any more?
I don't know what I would have done in his situation, but it's a dude seriously when Vicente Luque is pulling guard. I don't know where you thought you were going to go otherwise, but on the bottom against Buckley in half guard is not where you wanted to be. And 30 punches later, the thing was over.
Yeah. Let's get to the Bulls and the Bears. The Bulls and the Bears are a stock market reference. We do it like hockey style, like 3, 2, 1 stars of the night. Ben, I'll let you go first.
All right. Are we doing?
Let's be positive. Let's do the Bulls.
Okay. Bulls. Older fighters don't typically have great nights at the office. This is not a sport that is kind to the elderly, especially the further down the weights you go. But Manon Fiorot bucking the trend, winning handily over a fighter that was nearly 10 years younger than her. The younger fighter wins something like 70% of those matchups. Chris Weidman, reasonable minds can differ over the way it ended, but he was looking fantastic against a fighter nearly 10 years younger than him. And it goes on down the card. Kyle Nelson, Nate Landwehr, Bruna Jandiroba, all, winning fights against younger fighters. Good night.
Yeah, it was really, really good one.
Yeah. Got to go with Joaquin Buckley. Obviously, he's always a threat to put a man on his highlight reel, but if he keeps being this kind of guy that can win rounds on his way, I mean, that's a man to be scared of. You have to be able to win decisions to make your way up the welterweight rankings. Just even if you are Joaquin Buckley, and then he's just got a certain kind of brash charisma that it'll make a star out of him if he keeps winning enough to get Mike stuck in his face. And he's yet to say or do anything really, really objectionable. So if he just becomes this wild partying dude who, does pool parties in cold weather states and then goes out and knocks a man out the same day, like I am 100% in support of it. Last one. I'll throw Kyle Nelson out there, man. We've talked about a couple of fighters. I mean, Jacob Malkoun could easily take the spot as well, but people that are putting together unlikely win streaks in unlikely divisions and just people I never gave a chance of becoming contenders, sort of gradually creeping their way up that ladder. I mean, Kyle Nelson has won 3 in a row now, and I think I picked against him every single time. Malkoun has now won 5 or 6 in a row, and I think I've picked against him almost every single time. Not tonight, though. So, yeah, good night for Kyle Nelson.
Yeah, we had a lot of same. I mean, I had Chris Weidman as my number one, so I'll change it up. I'm going to go with Verna Jandiroba. I mean, she wasn't the favorite in this one. She's won 3 fights in a row against a tough opponent. She's on a nice little winning streak. My number 2, Jacob Malkoun. I mean, 6. If you count Brendan Allen and Cody Burns, he could be on a 6-fight winning streak. We're talking about, getting in the rankings, stuff like that. So his stock rising. And my number 1, I'm gonna go with. I mean, it wasn't the flashiest or anything, but it's gotta go Manon Fiorot. I mean, she's now 7-0 in the UFC. She's, prior to this, she just beat former champion Rose Namajunas, who then just won her next fight, which is, improved her win over that. Made it look better, and then she just won her, debut at main event fight. So, she's the clear number 1 contender after the Grasso Shevchenko matchup. So I think her stock is rising. Let's go up to Bears. I'll go first this time. My number 3, I'm going to go with Vicente Luque. I mean, the guy's lost 3 out of 4. The guy might be the oldest 32-year-old on the roster. In maybe the hardest division to, get a title shot. Something like those days are long gone where he was a true contender. Not good for Vicente Luque. My number 2, again, not giving up on her, but Erin Blanchfield. I mean, she didn't look good tonight. She was the favorite. She's in her home state. She was the one that was supposed to, finish off the night for New Jersey, get them all excited. Unfortunately, that did not happen. And my number 1, I don't do this often, but dude, it's got to be Gary Copeland. He had, in my opinion, he was involved in 3 early stoppages. Aslan Dakali was an early stoppage. R.C. Burns was a little early. R.C. Burns, I think, was inevitable, but it still was a little early. And then Kyle Nelson versus Bill Algeo. He stopped all 3 of those fights early. And then he had an all-time debacle in the Chris Weidman versus Bruno Silva. The worst was in the second round where Chris Weidman poked Bruno Silva, and it was, I don't know if it was the second round. Second time, I should say, Weidman poked Bruno Silva, and he doesn't take a point, and he started saying, well, they poked each other, and then he looked, and Bruno Silva did not poke Chris Weidman. And he didn't take a point for Weidman because he's scolding Bruno Silva for poking Weidman in the eye. As Bruno Silva's like trying to get his eye right, he's getting scolded for also poking Chris Weidman in the eye, which he didn't do. So not a good night for Garrett Copeland. Who do you got, man?
You know what? I agree with all of those. So rather than piling everything, like piling 3 more on, I'll just say not a great night for Renzo Gracie Philly. This is a camp that had an incredible camp-wide win streak going a year or two ago. They've taken a few L's in between, like since then, but this is a night where they sent, a couple of their well-known people to the cage. Did not have good nights at the office.
No,
And in general, the local favorites did not have a great night of it. I mean, Bill Aljo, another guy from that part of the country, Eastern Pennsylvania, even if he's not from Jersey. Weidman should have had a great night that kind of got besmirched. Yeah, but
Petrosky.
Yeah, Petrosky and Blanchfield both, lost. Aljo lost.
The guys who won, I mean, Bazooka, Julio Arce, I mean, they didn't beat any killers. Even Wyman's win is like scarred a little bit.
Tarnished. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a better word. Yeah. Who else you got?
That's all I'll throw in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we had 13 fights. We had 8 stoppages. Usually that's going to get you a really high score. I'm going to go like a C+.
I'd say even just a flat C. Just all we've been talking about tonight, for the most part, is officiating. That's never good. Like, I don't like to make a big deal out of it either. And for the most part, we just, let it go even when they have small goofs. But it decided, major things tonight. It was bad. And that leaves a bad taste in your mouth, even if a fight was good. So, yeah, some fantastic finishes here, but a lot of controversy. And the main event was instructive, but didn't really deliver a whole ton of entertainment.
Yeah, I agree. So, anybody who stayed till 3:30 in the morning probably deserves listener of the night. But Ben, give me a listener of the night.
Oh man, my listener of the night. I think he's gone by now, but like just the raging flame out that we got from what's his name, our resident rage troll.
Bob Simpson.
Bob Simpson. What was completely amazing. So I'll give it to him in absentia.
Yeah, I had a couple of really good ones. I wasn't sure to pick, but I'm gonna go with someone I haven't seen too popular in the chat, but it was pretty popular today. Had some really good insight. I'm gonna go with Icy Vegeta, and I apologize.
Vegeta, okay.
Vegeta, I'm sorry. I don't know if that's a reference to something. I don't know, but I apologize if I pronounced it wrong. But Icy Vegeta would be my listener of the night. So there you guys had it. We've covered all 13 fights in what we believe is the most in-depth recap show in the business. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. I want to wish you, Ben, and all our listeners a happy Easter, as if you celebrate that. So as I do, and so wish you guys all happy. I'm assuming it's Easter in all the countries, not just America, right? It's not like they don't have different Easters on.
Well, I mean, in any predominantly Christian countries, I believe it's on the same weekend.
Well, I know the Greek Orthodox do it in like early May, I think. Or I think it's like early May for the Greek Orthodox, but the Roman.
That's kind of like Canadian Thanksgiving. Who cares?
Yeah, there you go. So thank you guys. We'll be back. We'll be previewing UFC, whatever UFC. It's the Brendan Allen, Chris Curtis 2 card. We'll be doing that. If you made it this far, you could at least drop a like, help us get those views up, so our bosses will have us continuing to do this show. So like, comment, do all that stuff. Make sure to get the algorithms up so the bosses will be happy. So until then, thank you guys for listening. See you next time.